Howdy, y'all. Good evening. It's your old buddy Tucker. We all tuck in. I got yin's a quilt story tonight, and it ain't just cloth we're a-talking about. It's lives sewn together. Well, now let me tell you something. Folks think a quilt's just scraps of fabric stitched together, but out here in the hills, we know better. Quilt ain't just cloth. It's memory, it's prayer. It's a whole family's life spread out flat, then folded up to keep you warm. Why, I remember sitting with little June. She was a girl as bright as creek water. She was over at her Grandma May's place over there, and she had her old hound dog named Rufus. And old Rufus stretched out by the fire, his tail a-thumping in his sleep. Well, Grandma, she had this quilt, and Lord, let me tell you, it was something. Every square on it had a story, and she'd run her hands across them, and she'd whisper what they all meant. Now, I didn't need to ask questions, I just listened, and I'll pass it along to you just the same old way I heard it. Well, she said that one of the patches was pale blue, and that came from her granddaddy's Sunday shirt. He'd wear it when he stood to lead the singing in church. He didn't own him a tie, but he had a voice that rolled low and true, like an old coal train gliding through a valley. Every time he sang Amazing Grace, he slowed on the word wretch. Not 'cause he's ashamed, but because he is grateful. He knew what he was. Another patch was green, and it was thin from work. That was Grandma's field dress. Hot as a skillet that day, blisters on her palms, but she had pride sitting high right there in her chest. You know, work'll do that. It'll teach you where to bend and where you hold fast. There was a white square, just as frail as a whisper. That one was Aunt Lottie's handkerchief. She waved it from the train when she left for the mill. Folks said she was gone for good, but she came back every Christmas, arms full of buttermints and stories. Turns out leaving don't always break roots. Sometimes it just stretches them. Then came a square that was just as dark as midnight, and that was her great-granddaddy's shirt sleeve. It still had coal dust still ground into it after all these years. No river or washboard could scrub it out. He used to say, the mountain don't owe me nothing. I borrow, I thank, and then I return. He'd come home a-grinning, teeth as bright as lantern light in a blackened face. That square carried grit and pride both. Next there's a red checkered patch stained purple. That came from an apron splattered with blackberry jam. June's mama had worn it when she learned to stir the pot. Burned it once, cried once, but Grandma told her, sugar needs far before it keeps. And don't we all? Sometimes we need a little far to keep something worth keeping. I noticed there's an old gray patch stitched over again and again. That one came from a neighbor, one who borrowed more than she ever brought back. Folks whispered plenty, but Grandma said they chose to sew the cloth instead of the grudge. That was her way of teaching forgiveness. Not weak, but mending that holds stronger than bitterness. There was a ribbon stitched in too, bright and silky. Christmas of '62, when money was short and company was aplenty. They tied that ribbon on a pine branch and told stories around the fire. Sometimes the finest gift you can give ain't bought, it's spoken. And I'll never forget the little flour sack square. Grandma had made June's mama a dress out of it. She danced at the school social like a queen. She was a twirling in what most folks would have tossed aside. Beauty ain't about spending. Beauty's about seeing. Well, another square was blue bandana cloth. June's granddaddy used to tie it on the dog at night so he could spot him in the dark. The creek knows the way home, he'd say, but a splash of color never hurts. I reckon he is right. Little color in the dark helps folks find you, and it helps you find yourself sometimes. They was plain white cotton, too, cut from Grandma's wedding dress. It weren't nothing fancy, but it was strong. She and her husband promised more than they understood that day, and then they lived it out slow, one sunrise at a time. You know, cotton's like that. It's breathable, and it's mendable, and it's true, just like a good marriage. Another patch was a tiny handkerchief that was from a revival meeting by the river. A preacher thundered, and the babies cried, and Grandma wept so hard the hanky wore thin. She told June, not every tear's sorrow, some are seeds. And Lord, how that stuck with me. Tears to plant something holy. Then there's my favorite. It was a navy patch with white dots on it, and they looked like stars. It's cut from a shirt pocket, the kind that once held a note. It read, "Back before supper, keep the porch light brave." That right there could keep a family going through anything. A pocket of hope, stitched to hold. Well, by the time Grandma laid out all those stories, little June was near asleep, curled under the quilt, with old Rufus snoring steady by her side. But Grandma wasn't done. She pulled out a square she had saved, and it's creek water blue, with a little pine branch stitched in it. "This one's yours, June," she said. "Every quilt needs a promise sewn into it. Yours goes near the heart. Promise me you'll keep the porch light brave." Now, little June, her eyes were heavy with sleep, but she did manage to nod. Grandma guided her hand into the needle. June stitched a little wave on her square. "So I'll remember the creek knows the way home," she whispered. Well, friends, I sat there and thought maybe that's what quilts do best. They don't just keep you warm. They remind you of who you are. Work and love, forgiveness and faith, roots and wings, every patch a story, every stitch a promise. So if you're out there laying under a quilt tonight, think on the stories in your own cloth. Think on the hands that mended it and fire that tested it, the love that tucked it around you. And if you got you a porch light, keep it burning brave. Somebody out there might just be finding their way home by it. Well, that's my story for tonight, folks, and I hope you enjoyed it, and God bless yous all for listening, and hoping you get some good rest tonight, and we'll holler at yous the next time.